When is it time to stop? When is it time to let go? When is it time to end a franchise? These are questions that will probably never get a definitive answer. In an age when existing properties are milked to death, and even beyond that at times, all for a profit, you have to wonder, will it ever end? With recent expansions to franchises like Toy Story 5, The Incredibles 3, Frozen 3 and 4, and Zootopia 2, just to name a few, it feels like movies were successful in their time or brought back, either after a short break or after a long period of time, usually the latter. Whether or not people actually want them, as long as they make money, they will continue to be made. Movies like Toy Story 4 and Incredibles 2 each made over $1 billion, with a budget of around $200 million each, garnering massive profits at the box office. On top of merchandise sales, the profits rise even higher, and the cycle will continue as long as they keep making more. But why do they keep making money? To keep it short, these franchises started out as nothing but became known throughout their promotions of big corporations like Disney, and they capitalize on that with great stories and beautiful animation for their time. All of that, plus time on their side, that makes a successful movie, which leads to sequels that can be just as good or not, depending on the franchise, and in turn creates more profit. The cycle leads to a never-ending franchise, which can eventually become overexploited and lose its prestige it once had. That said, it doesn't mean the release of a new installment in a franchise like a sequel can't be justified. A recent example is Inside Out 2. When it was first announced, many people weren't excited about it at all, mainly because they wanted the original movie to stand on its own. Not that a sequel couldn't work, but fans didn't know how it could go and didn't want to risk seeing their original tarnished. But I think with the way the sequel turned out, it was justified. It's a great movie, but by supporting it, we send a message to the big corporations, further showing them that we want more sequels. And yeah, it's kind of our fault for that. Despite the quality of the movie, it's hard sometimes because you want a movie to succeed, but if that succeed leads to its downfall, was it all worth it in the end? Both sides can be argued, but Disney isn't the only company you can point fingers at. DreamWorks does this as well, especially with its most popular franchise, Shrek. The most recent entry, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, was one that people initially had no faith in, but it quickly turned things around after when the movie premiered, and made a profit actually, which now leads to Shrek 5. DreamWorks also released their most recent installment of the Kung Fu Panda series with Kung Fu Panda 4. Although it received mixed reviews depending on who you ask, people either like the film or hate it. However, it seems to be unanimously agreed upon that it's the weakest entry in the franchise. Franchises can surprise people going up and down in quality, but they keep going. One of the most popular franchises out there now is Illumination's Despicable Me, with its most recent entry, Despicable Me 4. After watching it, it really feels like this franchise is completely out of gas. With a total of 6 movies and a planned third Minions movie, which will make it 7, and a possible Despicable Me 5 in the works, that would make it a total of 8 films. And that's just way too much. They really need to stop. The franchise has degraded in quality so much since the first movie that it really just needs to end. But whether or not it will end depends on the money, and since these movies also gain massive profits, they'll keep making more. Unless they start making less and less money, but until then, we'll just keep getting more Minions. But what can we do as the consumer to ensure franchises like this come to an end? Well, it's as simple as not supporting the franchise in any way. Meaning no more watching the movies in theaters or buying the DVDs or even support it on streaming. Now, the likelihood of this happening isn't very big, but if a significant chunk of people stop supporting these movies, these studios will take notice and will try something new to regain attention. That said, you can support whichever franchise you like, whether because you enjoy the product or simply want it to succeed. You do you. Another thing we can do is support the original works that are being made. Say what you want about Illumination, but every now and again they at least try something new, like Migration most recently. While Migration could become a franchise itself, even with its box office performance compared to the other companies' movies, it's still an original idea. With other companies, a lot of people have also criticized Pixar lately for making too many sequels, despite the fact in the early 2020s, we saw a lot of original movies from them. There were literally 4 original films in a row: Onward, Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, followed by one spin-off, Lightyear. And then back to an original, Elemental, with only one sequel so far in the 2020s, Inside Out 2. So 5 out of the 7 Pixar movies in the 2020s have been original, yet people still complain that Pixar doesn't make original films anymore. This really shows that people don't pay attention to movie releases. Sure, there were 6 sequels in the 2010s, but I'm talking about the more recent films. Some people have argued that Incredibles 2 and Toy Story 4 were unnecessary, but I think opinions vary from person to person. The point I'm trying to make is that we need to support original movies just as much, if not more, if we want more originality in the future. Pixar has both Elio and Hoppers coming out within the next few years, so we've got to show Disney and Pixar that we want more originality. So even if you weren't particular about these movies, if you want more original films, you have to support these one way or another. Otherwise, we can't really complain when they turn to more sequels in the future. The same goes for other studios. Money talks. So when is it time to end a franchise? I asked that question at the beginning. Well, there can be a bunch of contributing factors. When the writing of a franchise runs out of steam, when it feels like a former shell of itself, or even when the story feels like it's given a proper ending, which sometimes happens, but a franchise can also be brought back at a moment's notice. Another factor is that if a franchise stops making money, they'll end it most likely in favor of making more successful ones. One thing I didn't mention is that a main factor, it could be that the main actors pass away. Although it hasn't happened too often, it will one day. Tom Hanks and Tim Allen aren't getting any younger, along with many other actors in big franchises that have been going on for well over a decade. Whether or not that will stop the studios, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. There are many different answers to the question on when a franchise should end, but once again, whether or not of these scenarios will happen all depends on the people who watch these movies. Personally, I'd say if you still love a franchise, even if it's over 20 years old with a bunch of entries, it's great to keep supporting what you love. But if you feel like it's gotten oversaturated, show them that you want something different. Believe it or not, they will listen. We as the consumer just have to be vocal about it and vote with our wallets. Only time will tell where the next era of franchises goes. But I'll certainly be around to see it all happen. When do you all think it's time to end a franchise? Is there one in particular you want to end immediately? Let me know, and thanks for watching.